Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our exclusive Global Leading Voices webinar campaign. We are delighted to have you join us here today. Please be informed that if you have any questions during the presentation, you may type them into the question box in your control panel. The presenter will answer your questions at the end of the presentation accordingly. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to our presenter, who will begin shortly.
Well, today, and Carol and Malcolm, thank you. How are you all today?
I'm very strong.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on this PECB presentation. We're going to be talking a little bit today about the fun and exciting world of digital transformation and some of the challenges you might find with doing it, but also how some of the risk management frameworks, particularly around ISO 27001 and 27032, can assist with that transformation. And one of the things that we said a lot in the preparation for this presentation was that I think the key takeaway we want folks to understand is this is a great time when you're doing these transformations, great time to integrate some of these types of frameworks and security controls. Too often we see within a lot of program design is technology comes first, security way down the road, not even a second. So it's often too late. So what we want to be able to let people know is that as you go through some of these transformative processes, you want to address security at the same time. And so we'll get into that a little bit. But first, just want to kind of let people know that there are some upcoming PECB events, particularly next week. There will be the annual conference. And part of that too is there's going to be the Chief Information Security Officer and IS Director 2.0 training course at the Insights Conference in Paris. Unfortunately, I have to be in Chicago next week, and I would love to go to that, but unfortunately, I have to be in a different city, as I find myself many times during this time of year having to be in multiple places at one time. And this week I'm in beautiful New York. It's actually sunny today. And it's I'm just bummed I can't get there next week. But please take note of that. You can go to the PECB conference website and register for that, and there's some ticket information on that as well. We'll get into a little bit too. Oops, let me see if I advance here. We'll kind of go through our agenda very quickly so you all have an idea of what we're going to be talking about today. I'll go about who we are and our backgrounds. And the one thing we want to note is that we all kind of come from different backgrounds, which is what we want to emphasize with folks is that, use that kind of diversity of thought as you approach these programs, because a lot of people are going to have different kind of views, opinions, backgrounds, and you want to get a lot of feedback and information from people that might not necessarily have come up through the ranks the same way you do. So talking about these types of programs with a lot of different people is going to be a key component, and we'll get into that as part of this as well. And we really want to get into the benefits of why compliance in this arena is important, and where we find that it has shown benefits to organizations, and ultimately why you want to do this digital transformation. Why now? We really want to be able to put some emphasis and color around that, and to why this is all happening now, and where you can get some benefits of using these different types of frameworks. And we'll cover those as well and go through some case studies. But first, I just want to jump into who we are. My name is Douglas Brush, and I'm normally based out of Denver, Colorado. Like I said, I'm in New York City today. Been in IT and cybersecurity in some form or another for the past 30 years. And I've seen many, many unfortunate events where have to go on in and do data breach investigations. I've also done lots of litigation response, compliance response, regulatory work, and particularly in the United States, but globally as well. I've worked on global compliance programs, and try to take a lot of what I've learned as practical stuff of where I've seen the proverbial poop hit the fan, say, okay, well, where does it benefit folks to understand, hey, this is where we've seen things happen in real life. How do we apply certain functions and aspects of controls inside of our program to say, this is more than academic. Here's where I've seen it fail. Here's where I want to be able to apply pressure. So I do that now full time with my own consulting firm, Self Consulting, where we do compliance programs, a lot of duty of care standard assessments, and program design, virtual CISO work. And that's really the joy that I find. I get to build programs, see them be successful, and see businesses be successful. So Carol, why don't I turn over to you and let folks get to know who you are?
Oh yeah, thank you, Douglas. Good Wednesday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for attending this PECB webinar about exploring strategies to safeguard your digital transformation and how ISO 27001 and ISO 27032 can help. So I am Karen Joya, and I am from IT and data management background with 15 years experience in management consulting and GRC, governance, risk management and compliance. I provide expert advisory to companies doing business, especially in European markets, for everything doing with data leakage, cybercrime prevention, but also with data privacy governance and supply chain cybersecurity risk management. And with more than 100 cybersecurity projects delivered now, I assist business entity in preparing and implementing and also maintaining the right practice under the ISO 27001 compliance framework, but also the GDPR, European GDPR obligation with the privacy by design and security by design aspect. And to a matter of fact, and according to many barometers nowadays, barometers of reference worldwide, cybersecurity risk is just one business risk for any organization in today accelerating digital world. So it's very important that we address this subject today. So without taking too much time, I'm going to invite Malcolm to present himself. Also, who are you, Malcolm?
Thank you, Carol. I consider this as a pleasure and an honor to work with both of you, Douglas and Carol, today with you. My name is Malcolm Xavier. Hello, everyone. I'm based out of the United Kingdom, live in the northwest of England. This is an excellent opportunity to share some knowledge that we've gained, all of us from coming from different backgrounds, right? So I have been working in this industry for about 18 odd years, working into different aspects of infrastructure, digital transformation, now cybersecurity, right? So I work with one of the largest oil refineries in the UK, and I've been helping a lot of clients across the globe. My experience lies in multiple countries like South Africa, United States, now in the UK. So a rich experience, and I'm always up for sharing more with the community, and that's why I am here. So looking forward to this excellent webinar. Douglas, over to you.
Thank you both, and yeah, an absolute honor to be presenting with both of you all today as well. We want to start by not burying the lead. Why do people do this? I don't think anybody goes into a compliance framework or a risk management framework and says, hey, I just want to do it. There's an outcome, and generally it's a business outcome that we want to drive because we want to show that cybersecurity can be a business driver. And in today's world, and we've increasingly seen that cybersecurity has to be a function of the business. You have to manage risk. So not just cyber risk, but all risk, and how does cybersecurity fall into that? And so, Malcolm, why don't you kind of say what are some of the things that you've seen in your travels and work that are some of the benefits that folks would see with an ISO compliance program?
Yeah, sure, Douglas. Based on my experience and interacting with multiple businesses, right? Businesses will always focus on their own priorities, their mission, their vision, right? They want to grow. They want to make sure that their customers are happy, and they want to make sure that the customer data is secured, right? Especially in this digital age. And when I talk about the number one benefit of getting compliance certified is the trust. These days you need to establish trust with your existing clients and also your potential clients to make sure that you have that competitive advantage. So with trust, you get your competitive advantage. And when you're under the umbrella of compliance, you're obviously taking care of the risk management, right? You would want to assess the risks that are associated, not just about technology, but also your business, right? You do your risk analysis program, understand your risk, mitigate them, and move ahead, right? And the outcome of the entire framework is your enhanced information security posture, and that's what businesses are looking at, these days. So those are the core benefits. Obviously, now ISO is not a legal requirement for many organizations. However, there are regulatory compliances in many countries, right? So ISO will directly benefit organizations to make sure that they are compliant against multiple regulations, and it will help you sustain and definitely grow as a business.
Awesome. Carol, where are some of the areas of the business where you've seen compliance be a benefit?
Yeah, sure, for sure. I'm in line with what Malcolm said, but I will add that compliance is a big opportunity to win new business, especially from the vendor view or from the company view, and it's a mean to retain existing customers, because nowadays with the acceleration of digital transformation, we can acknowledge that people are very aware of data leakage, and they prefer to renew their product or their purchasing behavior to companies that put the stress and security topics. And it's also very investing. You have to see compliance as an investment, as it is good channel to avoid financial penalties and losses from regulators, and also even, as Malcolm mentioned, the ISO compliance is not mandatory, it's more facultative, but this norm is internationally recognized, and it is a reference worldwide. So it's a means to be compliant, a means to enhance the reputation of your company, and also protect your business. And it's a good means also to obtain an independent opinion of the maturity of your ISMS, your information security management system, and to compete at the next level compared to your competitors. So this is what I want to add.
Yeah, and I would concur and agree with both of you all on that. The benefits I've definitely seen is, for me, and across all these areas here, but I've certainly seen what it's nice to have is a roadmap. A lot of folks have to approach a lot of different areas of cybersecurity, and it's difficult to know where to start. By having frameworks there, it can provide a nice roadmap and guidelines. And to me, that's a nice repeatable process, because you get to see what works, you get to test it, and right size it for the organization. I think that's the one thing we will kind of emphasize as we go through this is not a one size fits all scenario. The purpose of this is to be a framework, not a dogmatic process. There's definitely a lot of paperwork involved at different times, but the most important part is understand how does it right size for your business and your business needs. And this gets down to really, what are we trying to protect? And protecting the data is the most common aspect. I mean, there's a lot of operational and other different business functions that are supported by computer systems and technology, but really it's the data. Data drives decisions and drives businesses these days. In the 2016 Economist article, been fairly famous these days, but it really kind of says that data is the new oil. In many ways, it's much more valuable than that. Oil, you have to get out of the ground. There's land surveys. Maybe you have to drill in the middle of the ocean. With data, you can create things now. We've seen regenerative and generative AI create things. and it can be happening almost instantly and then transmitted around the world. And then there's data analytics on top of it. So yes, there's the data that we all use, but we're increasingly seeing more information about the information. So this metadata analysis that gets much more expansive than just the data itself. It's the context by which this data is used, assimilated, disposed of, that becomes really important. So the idea of data governance is really how do you build a structure around it that there's responsibility, there's accountability, separation of duties. Where does that fall into this? And by having a risk management framework allows you to understand, okay, where are the controls we're going to put around it, and what are we looking at as far as measuring that efficacy of that. So, Carol, where are some data governance kind of just if you had to take one tip for everybody of when you approach data governance and why having a risk management framework is important?
I'll take this one, Doug. I think maybe. So, from my perspective, Doug, these days, as you mentioned, data is a new oil, right? A lot of businesses now take decisions that's based on data. So it's basically a data-driven culture within an organization, isn't it? So so hence data governance is essential just because they want to manage the data quality, ensure that they keep the regulators happy, they manage the internal and the external risks, and improve the efficiency, right? Now data governance is becoming a foundational element for a lot of organizations, which is basically helping them harness their true potential, right? And it's not just like a one-time effort where you just, like drilling, right? You drill for oil, you extract the oil, and it's like an ongoing process. So data governance, similarly, is not a one-time effort, right? It's like an ongoing process. You have to extract the data, analyze it, use it, provided you secure it, in the best possible manner, right? So when you have data, you got to make sure that you have a strategy around to use the data appropriately. But the most important thing is how you govern it, how you protect it.
And
Yes.
I was going to say the one thing is, do you see a lot of happy regulators? I think general regulators are never happy, but I'm going to say one thing: having programs around the governance of your information, your system, actually does make them happy. I can tell you, regulators go to a lot of different environments where they're putting out fires, they're trying to figure out what's going on. Having to give them something to say, here's what we do, and here's why we do it, and put it in front of them when they're in your conference room, I guarantee they'll get out of your hair a lot faster than if you're searching around saying, I think we have a policy somewhere, I don't know. They will camp out in your conference room for months.
I agree.
Carol, what's some of
Yeah.
the data governance strategies you've seen, or the business reasons for why where do you see importance in it?
Well, I could mention the monetization of data on the dark web. Unfortunately, the value of data in the dark web is on the rise. And for example, to take some example, financial data in Medium costs around $20 a data. So it's well, this market is very booming, and there are vulnerabilities on entities, and we have to each third party, for example, is a potential attack vector for a data breach or cyber attack. So if a vendor has a vulnerable attack surface, it could be used to gain access to your organization. So you have to defend first and engage your third party to do the same effort to reach your requirement in data governance also. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's an increasingly valuable business, quite frankly, for cyber criminals. If you look at cyber crime just the numbers that they're putting out there, cybercrime has been estimated anywhere from $8 to $13 trillion annually, and how that data is used, abused, and monopolized. With, pardon me, monetized, dry throat there. And with that, would put it to be the third largest economy in the globe. So it's obviously something that's very big. It's not going away. And we can't just have organizations bury their head in the sand. So as we look towards the future, we're going to see more data being used in more ways. And, we want to talk about what is this digital transformation that we're all seeing, and what's going on. And it's increasingly a important kind of function within businesses, because it's digital transformation as itself refers to using digital technologies to fundamentally change and improve how businesses, organizations, and industries operate. We want these organizations to be able to deliver value and interact with their customers and stakeholders in a lot of different ways. The idea is to do this at scale and much larger. And certainly you're going to have aspects of cybersecurity that happen around that. It's going to be very important to do this as an integral function. And so the success of your digital transformation efforts are going to be very, very closely combined in this day and age with how well you manage and secure that information. And so the hope is that we see cybersecurity be more of this strategic enabler and not just a cost center. I think we've all lived in that world for many, many years. Security is expensive. It's pushed down on the balance sheet somewhere. We want to be able to say no. We're evolving to a new state where cybersecurity is going to be fully integrated with the digital transformation process in ways that enables the business, moves the business forward. It's a reason to do business. And so as we look at the digital transformation, want to say why? Why are we doing this? And so, Carol, to you, why are people going through digital transformations now? Now more so than ever.
People are going there to respond to new demands from customers. People are going there to modernize their way of selling their product, to innovate, to give more satisfaction to new client generation Z. Their habits of consumption are very different from they consume from social medias, from other than traditional or physical shops. So companies go there to adapt to the new era.
And Doug, a lot of people, do not understand the core meaning of digital transformation, right? For them, and you ask the why question, right? Basically, if you see, then you have your customers, and on the other side, you have your stakeholders, right? Customers want more value for their money, and the same thing is the demand from the stakeholders, right? So businesses have to evolve, with accept innovation, change how the business basically operates, to deliver that value, right? So hence, and if you would see a lot of adaptation across digital tools, processes being improved, and strategies, being adopted to improve the overall customer or the user experience, right? And that's only, for two primary reasons: either to sustain or grow from that perspective.
Definitely. And, where I'm seeing some things kind of happening as well is it's happening rapidly. Very large organizations are adopting more of the cloud native technologies that are out there. It allows them to really kind of do things on a much larger scale, reach more people. There's more and more things on mobile applications. Jamie Dimon recently at a shareholder meeting, a recent talk with inside internally and externally for folks at JPMC, said, "Hey, look, we're a we're not a bank anymore. We're beyond that. We are a digital services company. We deliver application information to our customers. I've heard this from automotive. I've heard this in just about every business line you can think of. They have said, we are really in the business of data, and we want to be able to do it larger. And by doing this digital transformation efforts, they can, again, do it so much at such a global scale and be able to support a global workforce. And that is really not going to go away. We're going to see this be something that's out there. But again, with with any technology, there definitely comes some risk. You just can't just turn things on and hope for the best like we used to. It's really evolved. And so we're seeing obviously a increased importance in cybersecurity. And so with this, for the panel, where are the risks that you see in kind of your day-to-day operations that, or the increased importance, I should say, of these different areas within cybersecurity around the digital transformation that we're all going through? And where I guess, the proverbial, what keeps you up at night? Where do you get worried at times?
Yeah, see, before we just jump into the increasing importance of cybersecurity, right? I would just like to mention one aspect, right? A lot of businesses are adopting digital transformation, and I think they think that security is just like the cost center, as you mentioned, Doug, earlier, right? It's normally added on as an option that this is something that could help to make sure that the stakeholders are happy, or the customers are happy, or the regulators are happy, right? It's not baked in. So now the requirement, and a lot of lessons are being learned by organizations. There are so many case studies. Gartner has mentioned that 91% of organizations are moving towards the digital initiative, and about 75% of them agree that they have to bake in cybersecurity, right? Hence, the importance of cybersecurity in this digital revolution stage is important, right? With data growing, we always are exposed towards, the attack surface has been increasing more rapidly, right? And that's why it's important that you have visibility to your data, your customer-facing environment, so that you protect it, right? Data centric approaches are adopted by business, but researchers have proven that now organizations are looking forward to protect not just their internal processes, but also the customer data that they maintain. And that's only primarily because of the regulation and the pressures they get from the outside world. Yeah. And the adoption of, the remote work since pandemic, a lot of research have clearly mentioned that it's going up. So while you have your remote workforce logging in over the internet, you want to make sure that you're securing the connections. There is an encryption across all different layers. Carol, your thoughts, please, on this.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, and I will put the stress from the from the vendor prism, and what I want to mention and share some figures that the most notorious global cyber attack, NotPetya, occurring in 2017, originated from an infected third party, and ultimately caused it over $10 billion in damage. So it's big. The financial loss is exponential. Could be exponential for matter of fact. And I want to add another figure, is that which illustrates the complex and growing vendors of cybersecurity attacks. About over than 60% of cybersecurity incidents involve a third party directly or indirectly. This figure is from Boston Consulting Group report from year 2020. So there are big threats and big big losses in perspective. So we cannot we cannot fear the problem, but just we have to face the problem and address it the right way. And thanks to standards like ISO, we have an harmonized way of implementing, and also an harmonized way of trained staff or of writing procedure, documented process, and make sure the right things are done the right way at the right time when an incident occurs, and respect the notification delay. So it's very important. Businesses from the first line of defense to the top management to be very aware and conscious of the criticality of the situation and address the problem.
Agreed.
We kind of touched on several of these different kind of challenging areas, and obviously, we know cyber threats are out. It's a business for most organizations. We see it not going away. It's a business in its own right, and most organizations have to deal with it now in one area or another. That brings a lot of compliance complexities, and with that too, it's then I think as we look at the digital transformation that's going on, I've certainly seen some maybe misguidance that organizations have when buying these solutions is that, hey, look, we're going to go to a cloud platform, our legacy systems will just shut them down. And there's a lot of reasons why that's not going to happen. Switching over to many of these SaaS-based platforms that are more focused on subscription-based services fundamentally changes the way that people buy technology. And many organizations might not be ready for the financial transformation that goes with that. So where things go from a traditional capital expenditure, CapEx cost, might go to an operational OpEx cost, and getting that type of approach down and correct with the financial folks within inside organizations can certainly be challenging as well. So I've certainly seen that be something that's out there. So when you think about, again, these technologies that are enablers, it does touch every other areas of the business, and it's going to be legal, financial, regulatory areas. And again, where there's benefits here by having these frameworks in place can really help guide you through these processes, because it gives you a nice roadmap, a nice way to do it. So kind of want to jump into that a little bit too. What are these frameworks that we keep talking about? They're more than just numbers. And so, while ISO 27001 is primarily focused on the overall general information security management, 27032 specifically addresses cybersecurity and the practices, and really looking for the concept of resilience. And for me, resilience, the definitions that I look at is being able to withstand and endure and be adaptable to changes. So it's not just the business being resilient against a cyber threat, it's really the whole complexities of confidentiality, availability, and integrity of information that stuff's there when you need it in the right form. So these, again, give you some benefits about it. Now, Malcolm, what are some of the benefits you've seen in these frameworks for businesses that allows them to achieve some business goals?
Yeah, the benefits are multifold, right? But I would just like to talk about the fundamentals, right? You mentioned about, the ISO 27001, right? As you mentioned, it's an overarching program. And when you look at the fundamentals, you want to make sure that your data is available, your services are available. You maintain the confidentiality of your data. Data is only accessible to the authorized people. Classification problems are addressed, and you maintain unauthorized changes. You want to make sure that you avoid them, right? You do not want unauthorized changes to your systems to guarantee your uptime and your availability, right, of your services. So you're talking about the benefits. So if a business is up and running, that itself is a benefit, isn't it? So if you're in the B2C environment, and let's say you're an airline business, you want to make sure that your booking services are up and running, your flight schedule are up and running, and you're not hampering any availability. Hence, that's a direct benefit. Confidentiality basically will help you maintain and protect your or make your protect your customer data, as well as maintain the integrity of the data you run as your backbone, right, of your business. So as we talk about the overarching program, there are some fundamentals that you need to cater, and the fundamentals basically start from risk assessment, right? You look at your risk assessment, you draw out a plan. Not every risk can be mitigated, right? But businesses need to do the cost-benefit analysis and choose mitigation plans for any risk that can be mitigated, and draw out a continuous improvement plan, right? And thereafter, at the end, when you have those certification and you may make the compliance check, right? It's just an assurity that you've done what was needed, right? And the benefit is just winning the trust of your customers and your stakeholders. So I talked about ISO 27001. Let's hear about the 27032. I think Carol mentioned about the entire supply chain case study yesterday to me. So maybe let's hear out from Carol about 27032.
Yeah, yes, about 27122, what can I say? It's important to mention that this framework has evolved. There were two versions, and from October 25th, we moved to the second revision of this framework, adding 4 additional, proposing the controls over 4 teams instead of 14 classes on the previous version. That was the version from 2013, and that 4 teams start from people, technology, physical security, and organizational security directive. We can mention that new security controls are introduced now, and basically entities have till the October 31st of this year to continue to certify, for example, under the previous frameworks, that is the version from 2013, and there's a 3-year transition period allowed to companies. So that company have until October 2025 to make the transition from the previous version of the directive to the new one. And from the third party vendor prism, what can we say? How do these framework help? Well, they help in identifying and classifying first, for example, your vendors, and you better know your digital business if you know which critical asset do your vendors access, and where they are involved, and understand your exposure to cyber risk. Those frameworks encourage business to conduct due diligence to evaluate their critical vendor security posture. For example, they can help to ensure the vendor security controls are aligned with internal security requirements. They can help abuse of security compliance questionnaire, addressing security compliance questionnaire to make sure those vendors have strong security standards and understand, for example, their life cycle from storage to encryption of data, for example. Those standards allows entities to conduct a penetration test, even bug bounty programs, so audit and monitor the security of the vendor permanently. So and also we can ask through compliance to this framework. We can ask visibility to a vendor on their certification and scope of certification, for example, GDPR certification, but also SOC 2, Type 2, or Signum Cloud, other frameworks that are needed on the market. So it's a good means to ensure your parties and to enhance trust, in business.
Yeah, and let's understand the key principle and guidelines. I think a lot of folks would try to ask, what is the key difference? When we look at 27032, we can clearly see you would have your risk management, which is also part of the wider ISMS umbrella, which comes with 27001. But then you have your collaboration. Without collaboration, you won't be able to achieve anything, isn't it? So collaboration plays an important role, or is one of the key principles of 27032. And this is not just internal collaboration, but also your suppliers, your third party, because you are living with that risk. If you don't manage the outside world, you would get hit, at some point in time. And 27032 primarily focuses on, how organizations and individuals can effectively address your cybersecurity issues, and that's where the incident response comes in picture, right?
Yeah, sure.
If you're not prepared for an incident, how would you actually, react when an actual incident happens? So the incident response plan is important, and you also want to make sure that you do your tabletop exercises with not just your internal teams, but also cross-functional team and leaders, right? I think, Doug, you mentioned yesterday about how challenging it is when organizations do not perform these tabletop exercises, right?
Yeah, sure. I will add that using those frameworks enables entities to establish good contract management and settle, for example, contractualize service SLAs and business continuity response, so the RTOs, the RPOs, and also securities KPI that are needed to do the monitoring to follow up. But you can also draft contract and make sure you can access some event logs from the vendor, or you can audit the code source, for example. So this is a good benefit to in terms of incident response, as you mentioned, Malcolm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely think, I want to emphasize too, when we look at the ethics that are out there, I'm actually speaking in the United States at Chicago at the SCCE conference next week, compliance, and we're seeing an increased focus now. I think globally, most organizations is how are they managing information in an ethical way that fits the guidance principles of duty of care, duty of loyalty, as a governance function. The idea is that people use information that's out there. There's a lot of codes and ethics around it that have to be observed, and you want to ensure, as kind of Malcolm said, that there is a type of trust that's out there. Trust to the customers, trust with the government, trust to other businesses. It's going to be a fundamental part of how businesses move forward. So by having these types of frameworks in place, as you continue to digitize more information, as the digital footprint grows larger and larger to a global scale, you want to ensure that you're putting in the right types of controls that also right size the ethical concerns where you are. So the United States might have a set of rules, regulations, and laws that have to be adhered to. You're going to have things like GDPR, you're going to have South Korea, you're going to have Brazil. Everybody kind of has a little different approach, and you want to be able to observe that. And again, having these types of frameworks in place allows you to kind of tailor to that. And we've seen organizations have to do that, and it can really be a nice thing to have to meet the ethical obligations as you go from territory to territory, because you want to have the right things in place that meet the compliance and ethical guidelines, but you don't want to slow down the business. And so that's a nice thing to have when you're trying to do things in global markets now, where you can adapt and be cross-functional in those perspectives. And there are obviously several implementation steps. And you would say like the first top row there, 1 through 5 is going to be very document and business focused. And I think it's important to emphasize that, at least from my perspective, is that, hey, you're not going to go in and this is going to be super technical out of the gate. It's going to be a lot of documentation that you're going to have to do, building out your risk registers, doing all these things to understand where the company's assets are, where the risks are, how the business works. Documenting all this and writing it down is going to be the big parts. But Malcolm, where do you really kind of start seeing it get more technical? And what are some of the timelines and steps that you see here, how they play out?
I mean, for me, the most important thing is the leadership buy-in, right? I mean, whenever you start such a transformation program, right, and you're adopting an international framework, the very first thing you want is your leadership buy-in. If your leadership understands and supports this model, then it's all a matter of time where you set up a team, understand what is the scope, and start getting on, and that's when wheels are in motion, right? You conduct your risk assessment, you document. As you said, a lot of documentation is needed, right? That's the core requirement. So, and this is all practical work that we have to execute. So I think from a timeline perspective, right, I've seen organizations achieving the certifications probably around 6 to 10 months, but it's a journey. There is a struggle, and a lot of organizations do face roadblocks, when they do not get the supports internally from within the departments or cross-functional teams primarily. So it's not an easy thing to achieve, because when you want to go for these international standard certifications, right, there are auditors that are involved. You basically have to prove that you are following the framework, and this is how you do your risk management. These are your documentation frameworks, and this is how you do your day-to-day activities, and this is how you protect your user and the customer data. So it's not easy, but as I said, the timeline could be anywhere between 6 to 10 months practically. And then it's again not a one-time activity. You have to make sure that you're ready for the next audit as well. So what are the common misconceptions, Doug, around this, right? We've heard that this is a framework. It can be tailored. A lot of documentation is needed. So what are the misconceptions?
I think some of the big ones is that it's got to be done all at once, or it needs to be done in a certain order. And I think the timeline, scale, and application of this can be misunderstood at times. There's lots of different ways to kind of approach it. And the one thing we want to be able to emphasize to folks is it's a framework, set of guidelines, and recognize standards. You don't necessarily have to apply every single part of it. You don't necessarily even have to get an ISO certification. We encourage folks to do that, but by all means, this is information you can go out and start researching and applying to your program. I think it's really important to understand how these things are put together. Look at other risk management frameworks that exist that are out there. Whether it be something like NIST 800 in the United States, or some of these other ones that have come out. Understand what some of the key principles are across all of them, and then put in the things that matter to your business. the business should be driving the decisions on this. We're consulting and informing with them and providing the levels of risk management to keep the business moving forward. So you can right size it. You can start small. I've seen organizations maybe do it in an area of the business, whether it be maybe a manufacturing plant in Poland, where, hey, we're going to put this in, do the certification here, and then we might apply it to other areas. So how you do it, why you do it, when you do it is all going to be very business dependent. And it's not necessarily always the big arduous process that people put it out there to be. It could be something that can be done tailored to the needs of the business and the timelines. And I think that's something that people kind of mistake, like they have to go through and start at the point and go through all those 13 steps. And by all means, those 13 steps, do some of them in parallel. Do not wait to have, get to that step where now we do an incident response plan. By all means, you can start that one early on, and you're better off getting ahead of that to when you start having to do those types of attestations and testing and all the things that go into understanding what that's going to be in the context of the framework. By all means, you can start building that, and we encourage people to do that earlier. Malcolm, and actually Carol, both of you maybe can kind of talk about some case studies, whether it's the ones on screen or other areas that you've seen to become effective. Where have you seen success in the real world with these programs?
Yeah, and even though I have direct experience working with global clients, my experience working with an MSP, working with global clients, adopting the ISO framework, and they've basically seen that they've developed the trust, and because of the trust, when they actually bid for opportunities, when they respond to an RFP, right, they have more chance of winning that. Even though you respond to what has been required, the trust actually helps you move ahead. And so I've seen organizations, and even though I recently wrote a white paper on this, and they have basically seen a reduction in incidents and an increase in profits. And profits are only possible when you acquire these new customers, and your customers depend on you, right? So financial, the first case study is financial. I won't take much time, but as I said, reduction in incidents, improving your cybersecurity posture by improving your, especially with ISO 27032, when you're improving your resiliency and your cybersecurity practices, you're basically improving the basics, and that's basically helping you to save you from the penalties and save your bottom line, right? So profits, save your bottom line, and then eventually build the trust among the user community and your customers. Right. So I think this was a good discussion, Doug. I think we covered many aspects. If you take a deep dive, this is definitely detailed out pretty well in a lot of papers, which ISO has done pretty good in terms of the documentations that are available. And I'm sure that PECB will definitely play an important role in cascading this information across the community.
Absolutely, and I think that's a key point to understand too. There are lots of resources out there, and publicly available. There's guidance, there's consultants you can do. So there's, again, no right way to do it other than the one that works right for your business. And definitely look at these things and approaches, find what works, right size it for your organization. If I had to give one kind of key takeaway for that, again, it's emphasizing that aspect of it. It's going to be very business specific, and the kind of step one that we look at is this leadership buy-in. It's more than just buy-in, it's their collaboration, and working with you and understanding why you're doing what you're doing, and vice versa. How is this business run? The one thing I like to ask organizations that I work with is, again, simply, how do you keep the lights on? How does information move from a customer impression to the balance sheet? Let's understand the functions and build resiliency around the key business and mission critical functions. So, having that leadership buy-in is more than them just signing off on this. It's having them involved with the process so you understand what's going on. And I think what's nice when you approach these frameworks, and when I've done this with other ones as well, I mean, there's other different rights of standards and frameworks out there, but it actually is really going to be kind of fun at times to work with the business because they say, well, you're just doing technical cyber stuff. I'm saying, well, no, we're supporting the business. We've moved beyond just IT security. We're talking about data governance. We're talking about business enablement. We're talking about this digital transformation revolution that's happening. How do we support this business? So having this ability to sit in the boardrooms and work with key stakeholders and talk to them, get to know them, is a great process. And there's some folks, that where I've done virtual CISO work for 2 years and help an organization go to an acquisition. Sitting there, I still actually going to see probably later today, one of the key stakeholders there was the chief marketing officer at that organization at the time. And he was just, at the time said, well, I don't understand why I'm here. Why are we doing executive tabletops? And as we're working through with him and saying, well, look, somebody's gonna have to talk to customers. Somebody might have to talk to the press. When there's this event, he's like, oh gosh, that's me. I'm like, yeah, you're part of this too. This is a team sport, and you're going to be the one on the phone. And yeah, I get to see him later today. He's like, yeah, you kind of opened my eyes up to this. So with that, certainly, I don't know if there's any other key takeaways that either of you would have for the audience, but if there's one thing, what to do, one sentence, what would it be? Malcolm and Carol.
I'm open to any questions. I think, sorry to interrupt. I think just looking at the time, I'm open to any questions if the audience may have any questions, whatever we can answer given the time we have.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Douglas.
But I was going to say one thing, if you folks do have questions, do type them in and I'll repeat them back.
Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot, Douglas, Carol, and Malcolm for delivering this very informative webinar for PCB. Just to remind you that PCB offers training and certification courses, which will show your dedication in managing data protection and cybersecurity frameworks. And now, without further ado, we'll just go ahead and answer some of the questions from the audience. The first question is there an effective approach to determine the value of assets during the risk assessment? Because we all know that we are dealing with intangible things when talking to business people. Then how to represent this value to them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say, and that really again goes back to some of the earlier points I said about understanding how the business works. The value is to say, hey, look, the one thing I like to ask key stakeholders when they say, well, how much is this going to cost? I say, well, how much are you willing to lose? Most executives, most business people hate losing. And when you ask them that question, they get very uncomfortable. And we say that's the type of function we're trying to build into here is we want to keep this business up and running as best as we can. We want to build resiliency. We do not want downtime. I understand that downtime is going to cost you money. Tell me, Mr. and Mrs. Executive, how long can you go down? Where's it in? They say they can't say never. They know that, but it's having that level of discussion with them to understand where those lines are. What's the acceptable risk? We're not trying to do everything at once. We're not trying to boil the ocean here, but it's where's the acceptable risk?
Absolutely, and when you can only get it when you know what is your asset valued at, right? Someone like the question said that you're also factoring in tangible assets, right? Look at your tangible as well as your intangible assets, and then probably sit down with the business stakeholders and understand what they do want to protect. You cannot, if you want to protect everything, go for it, but at some point you'll have to do some cost benefit analysis and see if the measures are sufficient enough to protect your business, right? So that would be my approach.
Yes.
And asset management itself is a pretty detailed process, which actually tells you the tangible and intangible assets.
Thanks, Malcolm and Douglas. Okay, we have another question. I understand there are software tools to assist in the process. Do the tools start from leadership buy-in all the way to certification?
Malcolm, Carol, any thoughts on that? The kind of tools to assist with the process?
I would say it doesn't start with the tool. It starts basically with what, understanding what does the business want, understanding the business priorities, and thereafter you at some point you would want to leverage a tool to document everything, especially with risk management, governance, risk, and compliance. You would want to drive it using tools and technologies, right? I don't think it starts with a tool.
Thanks, Malcolm. Okay, we have another question. It is not the transformation that is the challenge. It is maintenance that's the biggest roadblock. What do you all think about?
Carol or Malcolm, any thoughts on that?
Sorry, I didn't get that. That.
I'm repeating.
Okay,
Okay.
could you repeat the question?
Yeah, it is not the transformation that is the challenge. It is maintenance that's the biggest roadblock. What do you think? What do you all think about?
The maintenance, in my view, is not the roadblock. It's just that, when you actually start this complex program, you only discover the complexities around it, right? Maintenance is somewhat easier as long as you cover all the best practices and make sure that you follow the framework and gather support from your internal departments and stakeholders. Maintenance has never been a challenge. Of course, with the increasing threat landscape, things could become difficult, but I've never seen maintenance challenge.
Okay, thanks, Malcolm. Okay, guys, thanks again.
We're just up on time. I think this would be a good time to thank the entire audience, right? We had quite a big number today, and this was, good questions flowing around, right? So really appreciate you organizing this, Vesa, from your side. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to.
Yeah, thanks to all of you that joined us today as speakers, and thanks to the audience. Just to the audience, please be informed that this session is recorded and it will be posted on our website and YouTube channel along with the slides of the presentation. Thanks one more time for joining us today, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.